There's something hauntingly beautiful about the ruins of the Aylids, those ancient, crumbling structures hidden deep in the forests of Cyrodiil, whispering secrets of a civilization long gone. Picture this, a lone scholar, Ilara Varo, her fingers brushing against the weathered carvings of a forgotten doorway, the soft glow of her mage light casting eerie shadows across the stone. The air is thick with the weight of centuries, and every step she takes could unravel mysteries or awaken dangers best left buried. Can you feel it? That electric sense of discovery, the thrill of standing on the edge of history. Whether you're joining us under the pale light of dawn or the hush of midnight, we'd love to know where in the world are you listening from tonight, and what time does your own journey into these lost secrets begin? Let us know in the comments below, because tonight we're stepping into the unknown together. The Aylids, those enigmatic elven builders of Cyrodiil's most awe-inspiring ruins, left behind more than just crumbling stone. They left whispers of magic so potent it could reshape reality, secrets so dangerous they were buried beneath layers of myth and fear. Alara knows this better than anyone. For years, she's chased fragments of their knowledge, piecing together clues from dusty tomes and half-remembered legends. But tonight, as she stands before this forbidden ruin, something feels different. The villagers warned her, "Cross this threshold, and you may never return." Yet the carvings tell a story only she can read, a puzzle only she can solve. What would you do? Would you turn back, or would you step into the darkness, drawn by the promise of answers? This isn't just a tale of ancient stones and forgotten spells. It's a story about the price of curiosity, the line between bravery and recklessness, and the echoes of a people who vanished into the shadows of time. As we follow Ilara's journey, we'll uncover the truth behind the Aylid's lost magic, the curses that guard their ruins, and the choices that define a scholar's legacy. So settle in, because by the end of this, you'll see Cyrodiil's forest and its secrets in a whole new light. The ruins are waiting. Let's begin. The moment Ilara's foot crosses the threshold, the air itself seems to hold its breath. A chill slithers up her spine, not from the cold, but from the uncanny sensation that the ruins are aware of her presence. The walls hum not with wind or water, but with something older, a resonance that thrums like a half-remembered song. It's a sound that shouldn't exist in a place abandoned for millennia, and yet it pulses around her, vibrating through the soles of her boots. The villagers' warnings flicker in her mind, tales of scholars who entered these ruins and were never seen again, their voices only heard in the distant echoes of the chambers. But the door before her is no myth. It's real, its surface etched with glowing Aylid script, the letters shimmering like starlight, trapped in stone. To the untrained eye, the symbols might seem random, but Alara recognizes the patterns. She's spent years studying their fragments, scraps of parchment, inscriptions on broken amulets, the rare surviving texts locked away in imperial libraries. This isn't just a barrier, it's a test. The Aylids didn't seal their secrets behind simple locks. They demanded understanding. Each symbol is a piece of a larger puzzle, a riddle woven into their language. The first word catches her eye, Arcta, light, or perhaps, given the context, awakening. She traces the grooves with her fingertips, feeling the faint warmth beneath the stone. The next symbol is trickier than Alara, city of a or is it gift. The meanings shift like sand, and a wrong guess could mean more than a locked door. Some ruins are said to punish arrogance. Then the hum deepens, resonating through the chamber like a throaty chuckle. The air prickles with energy, and for a heartbeat, Ilara swears the script rearranges itself, the symbols flickering as if alive. Is it her imagination, or is the door listening? The Aylids were masters of tonal architecture, their magic woven into the very stones. Could their language still hold power? She takes a steadying breath, her mind racing. The answer isn't just in the words, it's in the spaces between them, the way the symbols dance in the dim light. One misstep, and she might join the lost scholars of legend. But if she's right, the door will open, and the ruins will offer up their first secret. The choice is hers. And then, just as she reaches for the final symbol, a whisper brushes against her ear, so faint it might be the wind, or something else. The door groans open with a sound like a dying breath, revealing a cavernous hall swallowed by shadows and time. Statues line the walls, tall, regal figures frozen in stone, their once fine features eroded into hollow-eyed masks. Yet despite the centuries of decay, their presence is unnervingly alive. Ilara feels their gaze the moment she steps inside, an invisible weight pressing against her skin, as if the lords of this forgotten place still watch from the beyond. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and something sharper, ozone, maybe, or the ghost of old magic. And then it starts, a pressure building behind her ribs, slow and insistent, like hands pushing her back toward the threshold. This is no accident. The Aylids were masters of defensive enchantments, weaving curses into the very bones of their architecture. Some say their ruins test intruders, measuring worthiness through pain. Ilara's vision swims, edges blurring into streaks of gold and shadow, but she grits her teeth and forces her focus to the walls. There, barely visible beneath layers of grime, are murals. Faded pigments depict robed figures in a circle, their hands raised toward a glowing orb suspended above an altar. The details are cryptic, but she recognizes the sigils woven into their garments, celestial alignments, lunar phases. This isn't just art, it's instructions. Her fingers tremble as she pulls out her journal, charcoal smudging across the page as she races to capture the scene before the pressure in her chest overwhelms her. But with every stroke, the murals seem to shift subtly, impossibly, as if the paint itself remembers its original brilliance. The central figure's robes now gleam with silver threads that weren't there moments ago. The orb pulses faintly, its light bleeding through the cracks in the plaster. And then, a sound, not from the hall, but from deeper within the ruins. A low, resonant hum, like a great machine stirring to life after centuries of silence. Ilara's breath catches. She came here seeking knowledge, but the ruins have their own intentions. The murals, the statues, even the curse weighing her down, they are pieces of a game the Aylids left behind, and she's just made her first move. Somewhere in the darkness below, something has answered. The question is, does it want to help her or stop her? The blue light doesn't just glow, it breathes. Ilara's fingertips hover inches from the wall, close enough to feel the hum of energy radiating from its surface. A rhythm like a slow, steady heartbeat. When she finally makes contact, the light flares, tendrils of azure snaking up her arm in delicate, branching patterns. It doesn't burn. It's colder than ice, yet it leaves no frost behind, only the unsettling sense that it's tracing the veins beneath her skin. Then comes the voice, not from the air, not from the stone, but from somewhere deeper, as if the ruins have uncoiled a thought and slipped it directly into her mind. A trade, it murmurs, the words smooth and weightless, devoid of any accent or age. A memory for a truth, one you hunger for. The offer hangs there, innocuous as a whispered secret, but Alara knows better. The Aylids didn't bargain lightly. Their magic was transactional, their prices exacted in ways no mortal could foresee. What would it take from her? A childhood moment, the face of someone she loved, or something subtler, the memory of a choice, the sting of a regret. She pulls her hand back, but the light clings, stretching like taffy, before snapping back to the wall with an audible chime. Around her, the chamber shifts. The blue glow pulses faster, agitated, and the mural she'd glimpsed earlier now writhe with new detail, figures bowing before a faceless entity, hands outstretched, their offerings dissolving into light. A warning or an invitation. The voice doesn't press. It waits, patient as a spider in its web. Alara's journal feels heavy in her satchel, its pages crammed with questions she's spent years trying to answer. What if this is the key? What if the ruins are offering exactly what she came for? But then a sound, distant but unmistakable. Stone grating against stone, like a tomb being unsealed. The ripple of her hesitation has traveled deeper into the ruin, waking something that should have stayed asleep. The air thickens with the scent of charged metal, and the statues along the walls twitch, their eroded faces tilting toward her in unison. No, not statues, guardians. The Aylids didn't just build traps, they built sentinels, their enchantments woven into the very rock, waiting for the unworthy. Ilara's pulse hammers in her throat. She could still turn back. The doorway gapes behind her, a sliver of moonlight teasing the edge of the darkness. But the voice hasn't withdrawn. It lingers, humming at the edge of her thoughts, and now there's an image forming in the light, a sigil she's only ever seen in crumbling scrolls. The mark of Mithras, the Aylid lord who sealed this place. A clue or a trick. The choice is hers. The ruins hold their breath, and somewhere in the depths, stone footsteps echo. The ground shudders beneath Ilara's boots as the spectral sentinels rise from the stone itself, their forms wispy yet solid enough to make the air crackle with restrained violence. Their blades ethereal but deadly, gleam with a sickly violet hue, remnants of the Aylid's wrath woven into enchantments older than the empire itself. She stumbles back, her shoulder slamming against a pillar as the first blade sings past her ear, close enough to sever a stray lock of hair. No weapons. No spells prepared, only the ragged edges of her breath and the frantic scramble of her thoughts. Then it hits her, a fragment from some half-remembered tome, scribbled in the margins by a scholar who barely escaped with his life. Moonlight unravels them, her eyes dart upward. The ceiling here is ancient, its panels fractured by time. One good strike could she doesn't let herself finish the thought. Snatching a fallen chunk of masonry, she hurls it with all her strength. The impact sends a web of cracks racing across the ceiling, and for one heart-stopping moment, nothing happens. Then, with a groan, The panel gives way. Moonlight spills through like liquid silver, painting the chamber in jagged stripes. The sentinels recoil, their forms flickering like candle flames in a sudden draft. One lets out a soundless scream as the light dissolves its arm, then its chest, until nothing remains but a wisp of violet mist. But the victory is short-lived. The crash of falling stone echoes through the ruins like a thunderclap, and from the darkness beyond the chamber comes a new sound, a slow, wet drag of something heavy against the floor. The air turns thick with the scent of damp rot and something metallic, something alive. Ilara's pulse stutters. The sentinels were a test. This feels like a consequence. The shadows at the far end of the hall ripple, then part. A shape emerges, not ghostly, not stone, but pulsing with a grotesque vitality. It has too many limbs, each ending in hooked talons that scrape against the floor with every lurching step. Its face, if it can be called, that is a shifting mass of half-formed features, as if the Aylids tried to sculpt a guardian, but forgot what flesh should look like. And worst of all, it's learning. With every step, its movements grow smoother, more deliberate, as though it's pulling knowledge from the very air. Ilara's hand flies to her satchel, fingers closing around the journal filled with her research. There's an answer here. There has to be. The Aylids didn't build traps without exits. But as the creature's head tilts toward her, its hollow eyes locking onto hers, she realizes the terrible truth. This isn't just a guardian. It's a mirror, and it's reflecting back the one thing she didn't come here to face: her own fear. The air shivers as the Welkinar descends, its massive wings, more shadow than substance, unfurling with a sound like rippling silk. Hollow eyes burn behind its ornate helm, fixed on Alara with an intensity that roots her to the spot. Its voice, when it speaks, is a fractured echo, syllables tumbling like broken glass in an ancient tongue few living ears have heard. Prove, it rasps, the word curling around her like smoke, or perish. Her hands tremble as she fumbles with her satchel, fingers brushing against cold metal. The coin feels heavier than it should, a stolen relic, lifted from an imperial museum years ago on a gamble that one day it might mean something. The Welkinar's gauntlet snaps out, snatching the coin midair with unnatural precision. For a heartbeat, silence. Then the creature tilts its head, the motion eerily avian, as if listening to whispers only it can hear. The coin glints between its fingers, its surface etched with a sigil long thought lost. The crest of Nenalata, last city of the Aylid kings. A grating sound fills the chamber as the knight steps aside, its armored bulk revealing a slit in the wall, a passage so narrow it seems to breathe, its edges shimmering with residual magic. But before Alara can move, the Welkinar's voice slithers after her, quieter now, almost mournful. Knowledge devours the unprepared. The warning lingers, clinging to her skin like damp, as she edges toward the opening. Beyond the threshold, the air changes. It's warmer here, thick with the scent of aged parchment and something sweetly herbal, like long-dead incense. The walls are lined with panels of pale crystal, their surfaces etched with flowing script that shifts when she blinks, rearranging itself as if alive. This isn't just a hidden corridor. It's an archive, one meant to be read, but never copied. Alara's breath catches as she reaches out, her fingertips barely grazing the nearest panel. Instantly, the script flares gold, words unspooling like threads pulled taut. To know is to be changed, to see is to be bound. A price, then, the Aylids never gave without taking. But the relic bought her passage this far. What else might it unlock? Her thoughts scatter as the crystal dims, the light retreating to the far end of the hall, pooling around a single, solitary pedestal. Atop it rests a sphere of smoky quartz, its surface swirling with currents of deeper shadow. The Welkinar's warning coils in her gut, but the pull is undeniable. This is why she came. This is what the ruins have been leading her toward. And then, soft as a sigh, the sphere pulses, and the shadows inside it twist into a shape she knows too well, her own reflection, but wrong. The eyes that stare back aren't hers. They're older, hungrier. The Welkinar's voice slithers through her mind one last time, distant now, as if shouted across centuries. Turn back. But the sphere is already whispering. The passage narrows, the walls closing in until Ilara has to turn sideways to slip through the final gap. And then, all at once, space opens into impossible vastness. The cavern stretches beyond sight, its ceiling lost in darkness, but the ground is alive, or rather, it was alive once, a garden, preserved so perfectly it might have been plucked from time itself. Bioluminescent fungi cling to petrified trees, their ghostly blue glow illuminating pathways of crushed crystal that crunch underfoot like brittle bones. And between the trees, figures, dozens of them, frozen mid-stride, mid-gesture, their faces locked in expressions of abject terror. Aylid nobles, judging by their elaborate robes, their jewelry still gleaming as if polished yesterday. Ilara's breath fogs in the unnaturally cold air. This isn't decay, it's stasis. Magic this potent shouldn't exist outside of legends. She steps closer, drawn to a noble woman whose outstretched hand seems to reach for something just beyond her petrified grasp. Up close, the details are worse. The woman's pupils are dilated, her lips parted in a soundless scream, her fingers curled into claws. Whatever happened here, it wasn't peaceful. A glint catches her eye, a stone tablet, half buried in the crystalline soil. Brushing away the dust, she finds Aylid's script, but the words are jagged, hurried, as if carved in desperation. Beware the Heartstone, it reads. It preserves the flesh but devours the soul. The price is eternity. Her fingers hover over the final line, where the script dissolves into frantic scratches. Then movement, a flicker at the edge of her vision. One of the petrified figures, a man with a shattered staff, seems to twitch. She recoils, pulse hammering, but when she looks again, the statue is motionless. A trick of the light, it has to be. Still, the air hums with something beyond silence, a resonance that prickles her skin. Kneeling, she spots a shard of something near the tablet, obsidian dark, but shot through with veins of crimson, like frozen blood. It's warm to the touch, unnaturally so, and when she lifts it, the light around her dims for a heartbeat, as if the garden itself flinched. The shard fits snugly in her palm, its edges smooth as glass. It thrums faintly, a rhythm almost like a heartbeat. Or is that her own pulse, racing with adrenaline? She tucks it into her satchel, and the moment it leaves her fingers, the garden exhales, a sigh that stirs the dust at her feet. Above her, a single petrified leaf detaches from its branch, shattering against the ground like ice. The message is clear. Something is waking, and the shard in her bag is no mere relic. it's a key. Or a curse. The air in the deeper chambers doesn't just feel thick, it feels sentient, pressing against Ilara's skin with a weight that shifts between liquid and stone. One moment, the corridor stretches straight ahead, torchlight glinting off familiar carvings. The next, the walls ripple like disturbed water, melting into impossible angles. A voice her own, yet not, slithers into her ear. You don't belong here. The Aylids spit on thieves. Her breath hitches. It's right about one thing. She stole the relic. But the accusation isn't just a taunt. It's a hook, dragging up memories of her mentor's disapproving glare. The way his hand had snatched back the Aylid amulet she'd pocketed as a child. Her fingers dig into her satchel, clutching the journal like an anchor. She forces her lips to move, reciting the first fact that surfaces. Alara's fall began in the 37th year of the First Era. The words are dry, academic, but they carve a path through the fog in her mind. The Aylid king's betrayal was orchestrated by his own kin. The illusion shudders, the walls flickering like a guttering candle. Another fact, louder now. They built their libraries upside down to honor the stars. The voice snarls, but the pressure lessens. One more. Their magic wasn't lost. It was buried. By choice, with a sound like shattering glass, the corridor snaps into focus. The once shifting walls solidify into rough-hewn stone, slick with condensation. Ahead, a bridge arcs over a chasm, so deep the bottom is swallowed by shadows. But it's not the drop that chills her. It's the bones. Dozens of skeletons litter the bridge, their postures rigid with final, desperate gestures. Some clutch rusted blades, others claw at their own throats. A few are frozen mid-crawl, as if they'd tried to retreat, but were dragged back. Ilara's foot hovers over the first plank. The wood groans but holds. The ruins aren't done with her yet. This bridge isn't just a crossing. It's a gauntlet. The skeletons aren't warnings. They're invitations. Every one of these souls faced the same choice. Press forward or flee. The ones who ran, the ruins consumed. The ones who pressed on, their remains marked the path like grisly signposts. Halfway across, the whispers return, softer now. Clever little thief, but cleverness isn't wisdom. The planks creak ominously. She doesn't look down. Doesn't stop reciting. The Aylids worship not gods, but concepts. Light, law, the silence between stars. The bridge steadies beneath her. Behind her, the skeletons rattle. Not with wind, but with something like laughter. The far side of the chasm yawns open, revealing an archway carved with a single, stark symbol. An eye, its pupil, a hollow void. The last test. Ilara hesitates. The ruins have peeled back her doubts, her guilt, her pride. What's left to strip away? Then, from the darkness beyond the arch, a new sound, not a whisper. Not a threat, a heartbeat. The moment Alara steps into the sanctum, the air turns viscous, clinging to her skin like wet silk. The domed ceiling arches high above, its surface inlaid with constellations that pulse in time, with the throbbing green light at the chamber's heart. There, suspended in midair without chain or pedestal, hovers the Heartstone, a jagged crystal the size of a human skull, its facets swirling with emerald shadows that seem to breathe. The murals encircling the chamber tell its story in vivid, grotesque detail. Ayleid lords kneeling before it, their mouths open in ecstasy, as gossamer threads of light unravel from their chests and coil into the stone. Others stand frozen in agony, their bodies petrified mid-scream, hands clawing at their own faces. The price of immortality isn't just death, it's never being allowed to leave. Ilara's fingers twitch at her side. The scholar in her recoils at the violation of natural order, but the girl who once stole amulets from museum cases leans forward, hypnotized. How many lifetimes of knowledge could she uncover with eternity as her tool? Her reflection warps in the Heartstone's surface, stretching and thinning until it's no longer her face staring back, but a mosaic of the scholars who came before, their features layered like parchment, their eyes hollow with centuries of watching. Then, a scrape of boot leather on stone. The sound is unmistakable, human, and far too close. Ilara whirls, her back pressing against the plinth, as the chamber's entrance darkens with a familiar silhouette. Aldrian, the Imperial Antiquities agent who's been trailing her for months, stands framed in the archway, his dagger already drawn, but it's not triumph in his eyes. It's fear. Don't touch it. He rasps, his voice raw. That thing isn't a relic, it's a wound, and you're about to rip the stitches. Behind him, the shadows twitch. Not just shadows, figures, the petrified nobles from the garden, their limbs jerking like marionettes as the Heartstone's light pulses faster, hungrier. Aldrian doesn't see them, but Alara does, and in the crystal's depths, something sees her back. Calius's dagger glints in the Heartstone's eerie glow, its edge trembling just slightly, not from fear, but from the raw, unchecked hunger in his eyes. He steps forward, his scholar's robes frayed at the hem, stained with mud and something darker. You always did take what wasn't yours, he hisses, his voice slick with venom. Ilara knows that tone. It's the same one he used years ago in the Arcane University, when he'd been caught pilfering restricted tomes on Aylid's soul magic. But this isn't about theft, it's about annihilation. The way his gaze flicks to the Heartstone, lingering on its swirling depths, tells her everything. He doesn't want to study it, he wants to use it. The chamber groans in response to their tension, the very air thickening like syrup. Beneath their feet, the stone trembles, hairline cracks spider, webbing outward, as if the ruins themselves are recoiling from the poison of their confrontation. Ilara doesn't move, doesn't reach for a weapon. She doesn't need to. The air around her thrums with the Heartstone's unstable energy, and the petrified figures along the walls twitch, their hollow eyes turning toward Calius with slow, grinding menace. You think this is about rivalry. Ilara's voice is steady, but her pulse isn't. You've seen the murals. You know what happens to those who try to wield this thing. Calius barks a laugh, sharp and brittle. And you've always been too timid to seize real power. The Aylids understood. Knowledge isn't meant to be hoarded in books. It's meant to be consumed. His free hand gestures wildly to the Heartstone, its light flaring in response, casting his face in ghastly emerald shadows. For a heartbeat, the chamber holds its breath. Then a sound like shattering glass splits the air as the cracks in the floor widen, vomiting up tendrils of spectral mist. The wails begin not from the walls, not from the petrified nobles, but from the stone itself, a chorus of voices trapped centuries ago. The Heartstone pulses faster, its rhythm erratic, and the temperature plummets. Frost feathers across Ilara's boots. Climbing toward her knees, Calius staggers, his dagger slipping from his grip, as the mist coils around his ankles, yanking him toward the fissure. Ilara lunges, not for the Heartstone, but for him, her fingers closing around his wrist, just as the ground beneath him gives way. For a moment, they hang there, suspended over the abyss, his weight dragging them both toward the edge. His eyes widen, the arrogance bleeding into something raw. Why? He chokes out. The answer is simpler than he deserves, because the ruins aren't the only thing that remembers. Above them, the Heartstone shrieks, its light flaring blindingly bright. The choice is no longer theoretical. Fight and risk, unleashing whatever sleeps inside the crystal. Flee and leave Calius to a fate worse than death. But the ruins don't wait for decisions. With a final, deafening crack, the sanctum begins to collapse. Ilara's muscles scream as she pivots, the jagged shard of pillar clenched in her grip like a dagger made of desperation. Calius stumbles past her, his momentum carrying him toward the yawning fissure, but her eyes are locked on the Heartstone. Its light has turned sickly, the emerald glow now streaked with veins of black that pulse like infected blood. The Aylid spirits aren't just watching anymore. They are feeding. Their translucent forms coil around the crystal, drinking in its corrupted energy, their hollow eyes burning brighter with each passing second. One of them turns its gaze toward her, and for a heartbeat, she sees not hatred, but hunger. The ground bucks beneath her feet as another section of the sanctum collapses, raining debris into the abyss. Calius claws at the edge, his fingers scrabbling for purchase, but Alara doesn't hesitate. She sprints toward the Heartstone, the shard raised high. Every instinct as a scholar wars against what she's about to do, centuries of knowledge, lost in an instant. But the murals told the truth. The Aylids didn't just worship this thing. They fed it, and now it's waking up. The air itself resists her, thickening like tar as she nears the crystal. The spirits shriek, their voices layered into a single, bone-rattling wail. One dives for her, its ghostly fingers raking across her shoulder, and the pain is instant, not physical, but deeper, as if it's scraping at her very memories. She staggers, vision swimming with flashes of her childhood, her first dig site, the smell of old parchment in her mentor's study, all of it fraying at the edges, unraveling. Then a hand closes around her ankle. Calius, half dangling over the abyss, his face twisted with fury. "You'll doom us all," he snarls, yanking hard. Ilara crashes to her knees, the shard skittering just out of reach. Above them, the Heartstone's rhythm escalates, its pulses coming faster, erratic. The spirits are merging with it now, their forms dissolving into the crystal's core, and with each one that vanishes, the sanctum shakes harder. She kicks free, lunging for the shard. This isn't about winning. It's about what happens when the last spirit disappears, when the Heartstone finishes its feast. Her fingers close around the stone, just as Calius grabs her cloak, dragging her back. But she's already twisting, already swinging. The shard strikes the Heartstone with a sound like the world cracking in half. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then light, not an explosion, but an unraveling, threads of emerald and shadow spiraling outward in perfect, terrible silence. The last thing Ilara sees before the darkness takes her is Calius's face, not furious anymore, but horrified, as the ruins remember what they were meant to be. A tomb, not for the dead, for the thing that couldn't die. The moment the Heartstone fractures, time itself seems to splinter. A shockwave ripples outward, not in air, but in memory. Alara feels centuries peel back like layers of burned parchment. The screams of the trapped Aylids not just heard but lived, their final moments flooding her mind in a dizzying rush. The chamber convulses, stone grinding against stone, as the ceiling begins its deadly descent. Calius's hand grips her arm, his face a mask of dawning horror as the truth crashes over them both. They haven't just broken a relic. They've shattered a prison. The Welkinar materializes from the chaos, its spectral armor now fractured, its once menacing presence softened by something like relief. It doesn't speak. It doesn't need to. The tilt of its helm toward the crumbling archway is command enough. Together they run, Alara's boots slipping on fragments of the Heartstone, Calius's breath ragged with guilt and adrenaline. Behind them, the sanctum collapses inward, the walls dissolving into cascades of dust and spectral light, as if the ruins are finally exhaling after holding their breath for millennia. The corridors twist and warp, the very architecture resisting their escape. Murals disintegrate as they pass, their pigments bleeding into the air like smoke. The Welkinar moves with eerie certainty, its wings flaring to deflect falling debris, guiding them through shortcuts that shouldn't exist, a staircase that folds in on itself, a doorway that leads not to the next hall, but through it. Every step is a defiance of physics, of time. Then, the exit. Not the sunlit threshold they'd crossed hours ago, but a jagged tear in reality itself, shimmering with unstable magic. The Welkinar halts, its hollow gaze locking onto Alara's. For the first time, it speaks, its voice stripped of menace, thin as a whisper. The stone is gone. The debt remains. Before she can ask what it means, the creature shoves them both forward, not with violence, but with the weary resignation of a sentinel, finally released from duty. They tumble onto damp grass, the night air shockingly cold against their skin. Behind them, the ruins groan one last time, then silence, not the quiet of absence, but of something settling. Of rest, Calius stares at his hands, now streaked with luminous dust that fades even as they watch. It wasn't just power they buried, he murmurs, it was atonement. Above them, the stars blink awake, indifferent. The ruins are gone, but the whispers those Ilara knows will linger. The world beyond the ruins feels wrong. Not broken, not changed, unfinished. The trees stand too still, their leaves holding their breath as if afraid to rustle. Even the dirt beneath Ilara's knees feels lifeless, like the earth itself forgot how to breathe. Calius wheezes beside her, his fingers digging into the soil, but her focus locks onto the satchel. The fabric pulses faintly, a slow, sickly rhythm where the shard nestles against her journal. She doesn't need to open it to know the glow hasn't faded. The Heartstone is gone, but its hunger lingers. Calius coughs, spitting out dust and something darker. Did we? He doesn't finish. The answer is written in the way the forest refuses to acknowledge them, in the absence of insects humming, of distant animal calls. Nature should have reclaimed this place by now. Instead, it's waiting, watching. Ilara's fingers brush the satchel's clasp, and the moment she makes contact, the shard reacts, not with heat, but with a vibration that slithers up her arm like a serpent tasting the air. Her vision fractures for a heartbeat, overlaying the peaceful glade with another image, the same trees, but twisted, their bark blackened, their branches ending in hooked claws. Then it's gone, a warning, a memory. The ruins didn't just hide the Heartstone, they contained it, and now, a twig snaps, not from the undergrowth, from above. They both freeze as the Welkinar perches on a dead oak branch, its armor cracked, its wings tattered. It doesn't speak, it doesn't need to. The way its hollow gaze drops to the satchel says enough. The shard isn't a souvenir, it's a thread, one that still binds them to whatever slept beneath those ruins. Calius pales. You didn't tell me you took something. Ilara's jaw tightens. She hadn't known, not really, not until now. The shard thrums again, and this time, the response comes from the ground itself, a single, shuddering breath rising through the roots. The forest isn't silent anymore. It's listening. The candle in Ilara's study gutters, casting long, trembling shadows across the parchment strewn over her desk. Ink stains her fingers, her hastily scribbled notes a chaotic web of half-formed theories and fragmented translations. The shard rests beside her in quell, inert by daylight, but at night it speaks. Not in words, not in echoes, but in the language of dreams. Flashes of Aylid rituals, sigils that twist like living things, the scent of ozone and crushed juniper. She wakes with her sheets knotted around her legs, her throat raw from screaming spells she doesn't remember learning. Calius finds her like this at dawn, slumped over her desk, her cheek pressed to an open page. He doesn't knock. He hasn't since they returned. The door swings open to reveal him holding 2 steaming mugs, his own eyes shadowed with exhaustion. "You're still keeping it," he says flatly, setting one mug down hard enough to slosh liquid over the rim. The accusation hangs between them, sour as the tea. Ilara rubs her temples. "I'm studying it. There's a difference. Tell that to the Welkinar." His laugh is jagged. "You think it let us go out of kindness? That thing isn't a relic. It's a leash, and you're tugging on it." She wants to argue, wants to snap that she's careful, that she's cataloging every tremor, every whisper. But the truth sits heavy in her chest. Last night, in the liminal space between sleep and waking, she'd traced one of the shard sigils in the air, just to see. Just for a moment, and the room had bent, the walls breathing inward as if the very fabric of reality were parchment held too close to a flame. Calius sees the hesitation in her face. His voice drops, urgent. "It's not knowledge, Ilara. It's bait. The Aylids didn't just hide the Heartstone. They fed it. Every scholar who ever touched a fragment thought they could control it. And now they're part of the garden. Outside, the imperial city stirs to life. Carts rattling over cobblestones, merchants calling their wares. Normalcy, so loud it aches. Ilara's fingers hover over the shard. What if, just once, she let it show her something small, a healing charm, a ward against decay. Not power, just preservation. The shard thrums faintly under her touch, warm as a living thing. Calius's hand closes over hers, his grip tight enough to bruise. "You burn a letter," he says quietly, "not because you fear the words, but because you know who else might read them." For the first time, she truly looks at him, the new streaks of gray in his hair, the way his free hand trembles, not from fear, from withdrawal. He's dreamed, too. And he's right. The decision should be simple, But as the morning light spills across the desk, the shard winks at her, its depth swirling with the ghost of a smile. The reflection in Alara's mirror doesn't just watch her anymore, it studies. At first, the changes were subtle. A flicker of gold in her pupils, a shadow where none should be. Then came the face, not her own, but a woman with skin like polished marble and eyes that held no whites, only pools of liquid darkness. The Aylid's lips move silently, forming words Alara feels more than hears, a language that slithers into her dreams and stains her waking thoughts. She tells herself it's fatigue, a trick of the shard's residual magic, until the night she wakes to find her hands tracing symbols on the bedroom wall, symbols she's never seen before, yet her fingers know them like old friends. The cleansing ritual should have been simple: salt, rosemary, a handful of crushed moonstone ingredients she's used a dozen times to purify corrupted artifacts. But the shard doesn't just resist, it retaliates. The moment the first syllable of the incantation leaves her lips, the candle flames twist into emerald spirals, their smoke coiling into shapes too precise to be random. Serpents with too many eyes, crowns of thorns, a tree with roots that drip black sap. The air curdles, thick with the scent of burnt honey and iron, and then pain. Not hers, not physical. It's as if something ancient and ravenous has suddenly noticed her, its attention like a blade pressed to the back of her neck. The Wraith emerges from the mirror in a cascade of shattered glass, its form woven from strands of Alara's own shadow. It doesn't speak at first. It tilts its head, mimicking her posture, her breath, the frantic flutter of her pulse. When it finally opens its mouth, the voice that spills out is wrong, a chorus of whispers layered over a sound like grinding bones. Vindasel, it hisses, the name slithering across the room, leaving frost in its wake. You carry his leash, his hunger. You will feed him, little thief, or you will become his feast. Alara staggers back, her heel crushing a shard of glass. The sound seems to snap the Wraith's patience. It lunges, not for her throat, but for the satchel at her hip, the one holding the shard. She twists away, but not fast enough. Its fingers brush the fabric, and the contact sends a jolt through her body, a flash of memory not her own, a cavern deeper than the ruins, a throne of fused skeletons, and atop it, a figure cloaked in light, so bright it burns to look at, yet its shadow stretches endlessly behind it, blacker than the void between stars. Vindasel, not a king, not a god, something that wore both skins and found them equally suffocating. The Wraith dissolves with a shriek, its form unraveling into smoke that stains the ceiling with oily streaks. But the name lingers, vibrating in Alara's teeth, in the marrow of her bones. The shard hums in response, its warmth now uncomfortably close to a heartbeat. She knows, with a certainty that chills her more than any specter, that this isn't over. The ruins were never the prison. She was. The cobbled streets of the Imperial City's arcane district have never felt so narrow, so suffocating, as Alara shoulders her way through the evening crowd. Her satchel burns against her hip, the shard's presence a constant, gnawing weight. Galerian's tower looms ahead, its crooked silhouette cutting into the twilight like a broken bone. The old Altmer hasn't taken apprentices in decades, hasn't answered his door to strangers in longer, but desperation has a way of bending rules. The knock echoes too loudly, as if the wood itself resists her. When the door finally creaks open, Galerian stands framed in the dim light, his golden eyes sharp as shattered glass, despite the deep lines etching his face. He doesn't greet her, doesn't ask her name. His gaze drops to her satchel, and the color drains from his cheeks. So, he murmurs, voice like dry parchment, "Vindasel's leash has found new flesh." The fire in his study gutters as Alara places the shard on the table between them. It doesn't glow here. It preens, the light within it, curling like a satisfied cat. Galerian doesn't touch it. He circles the table, his robes whispering against the floor, his fingers tracing warding signs in the air. "You mistake what this is," he says at last. A phylactery isn't a vessel, it's a mouth, and it's been feeding on you. Alara's breath hitches the dreams, the reflection, the way her hands sometimes move without her. Galerian sees the understanding dawn and nods grimly. Vindasel wasn't just a necromancer, he was a thief of dawns. He didn't want eternal life, he wanted to unmake death itself. And when his own body failed, he carved his soul into shards like this one, scattering them across Cyrodiil like breadcrumbs for the desperate. The fire spits, casting long shadows that twist into shapes too deliberate to ignore. Gaunt figures with elongated limbs, their mouths open in silent screams. Galerian follows her gaze and exhales. The ritual to sever his hold exists, but the Aylids made certain no one would use it lightly. He hesitates, then reaches into the folds of his robe, withdrawing a yellowed scroll. The sigil on its seal makes Alara's stomach lurch, a stylized heart, pierced by a single thorn. "There's a price," Galerian says softly. "Not gold, not pain. A memory, the one you hold dearest." Vindasel's magic thrives on longing. To break his hold, you must offer up the thing you can least bear to lose. Outside, the wind howls through the tower's eaves, carrying with it a whisper that might be laughter. Ilara's fingers tighten around the scroll. Somewhere beneath her ribs, the shard pulses in time with her heartbeat, a rhythm that isn't quite her own anymore. Galerian's hand brushes hers, startlingly warm. "Choose quickly, girl. Every night you dream, he grows stronger, and soon he won't need your permission to wear your skin." The fire snaps, and in the sudden flare, Ilara sees it, her reflection in the window behind him, only it isn't her face staring back, it's his. The wind howls across the hilltop, like a chorus of the damned, tearing at Ilara's cloak, as if trying to rip it from her shoulders. Above, the blood moon hangs swollen and heavy, its crimson light painting the ritual circle in shades of old wounds. Galerian's voice rises and falls in a cadence, older than the Empire, each syllable carving sigils into the air that glow briefly before dissolving. But the Wraith isn't waiting for an invitation. It coils up from the cracks in the earth, a living storm of shadows that reeks of burnt hair and spoiled milk, its form twisting into jagged, half-recognizable shapes. A skeletal hand here, a gaping maw there, all stitched together with threads of malice. Ilara's fingers tighten around the shard. It's burning now, not with heat, but with a cold so deep, it feels like holding a sliver of the void itself. Galerian warned her this would happen. The ritual demands balance, a memory for a soul, something precious to sever Vindasel's grip. But the Wraith hisses laughter, its voice slithering into her ears like smoke. "Foolish girl, you think he wants your tears, your childhood dreams. He craves the ruins, the taste of stone and starlight on your tongue, the weight of centuries in your bones." Give him that, and you'll forget why you ever loved the dead. The ground beneath her boots trembles, not from the wind, but from something stirring far below. The shard pulses in time with it, a heartbeat that isn't hers. Ilara knows what she has to do. The incantation sits heavy on her tongue, the final words clawing at her throat, demanding release. But the cost Galerian stumbles, his chant breaking as the Wraith lashes out, a tendril of darkness wrapping around his ankle like a noose. His eyes meet hers, wide with pain, but clear with understanding. No more warnings, no more time. Ilara screams the incantation, not in defiance, but in offering. Her voice shatters the night, the sound tearing from her not as words but as pure, raw sound, the echo of every cliffside she's scaled, every whispered secret she's pried from the ruins, every gasp of wonder at some long-lost marvel. The Wraith shrieks, its form unraveling like rotten cloth, but the true pain is hers. She feels it the moment the ritual takes its price. The memory of her first glimpse of Nenalada's spires, the way the dawn painted them gold, the ache in her chest that said this is why you breathe. Gone, ripped from her like a page from a book, the shard cracks, its light guttering out like a snuffed candle. The hilltop falls silent, even the wind holds its breath. And then, from the darkness where the Wraith dissolved, a single skeletal hand thrusts upward, grasping at the blood moon, not Vindasel's, hers. Light erupts, not in a burst, but in a slow, deliberate unraveling, like dawn peeling back the night. The shard dissolves between Ilara's fingers, its fragments scattering like embers caught in a sudden wind, each one winking out before they touch the ground. Vindasel's scream lingers for a heartbeat, a soundless echo that vibrates in her teeth before fading into the earth. Then silence, not the absence of noise, but the kind that comes when something vast and ancient finally exhales. Ilara collapses, her knees striking the damp grass, her throat raw as if she's swallowed fire. The words are gone, scraped from her voice by the ritual's price. But her mind is crystalline, sharp with a clarity she hasn't known since before the ruins. Galerian's hands are steady as he helps her up, his grip firm, but not unkind. The old Altmer's expression is unreadable in the moonlight, but there's a weight to his silence that speaks louder than pity. He doesn't offer empty comforts. He doesn't need to. The cost of knowledge has always been steep, and Ilara's ledger is written in the hollows beneath her eyes, in the way her fingers tremble not from fear, but from the absence of something she can no longer name. The memory is gone, not faded, not buried, gone as if it never was. Yet somewhere, deep in her bones, she feels the shape of its absence, like a missing step in a familiar staircase. The hilltop is different now, the air lighter, the shadows softer, as if the land itself has been unshackled. Galerian bends, retrieving a single, twisted piece of metal from the grass. The remains of the ritual's focus, now just a scrap of mundane iron. It's done, he murmurs, though the words are unnecessary. The proof is in the quiet. No whispers, no creeping cold, no eyes watching from the dark. Ilara tries to speak, but her voice won't come. Instead, she presses a hand to her chest, where the shard once burned against her skin. The curse is broken, the leash is severed, but as Galerian turns to lead her down the hill, she glances back one last time. The grass where the shard fell is already regrowing, vibrant and green, as if the earth is eager to forget. And then a flicker, not in the air, not in the light, but in the corner of her vision. A shadow that moves just a breath too slowly to be the wind. Galerian doesn't see it, but Alara does, and for the first time since the ritual, she smiles. The quill moves across the parchment in quick, precise strokes, ink bleeding into the fibers as Alara commits the Aylid secrets to paper. Her study is bathed in the quiet glow of a single lantern, its light just strong enough to push back the shadows, but never quite reaching the corners where the air still feels thick with memory. She writes in silence, not by choice, but necessity. The ritual stole her voice, though the healers insist there's no physical cause. They don't understand. Some wounds aren't meant to be seen. Her fingers pause mid-sentence, hovering over the page as if expecting the ink to rearrange itself into warnings she can no longer hear. The ruins' whispers are gone, but their absence leaves a different kind of mark. Sometimes, when the candlelight flickers just so, she swears the shadows near the bookshelf twitch, forming shapes too deliberate to dismiss as fatigue. She doesn't flinch. She knows better now. The past isn't truly buried, just patient. A stack of finished pages sits to her left, each one a testament to battles fought in ink rather than blood. The world will read of Nenelada's fall, of Vindasel's hubris, of the Heartstone's hunger, but they'll never know how it felt to stand in that crumbling sanctum, the weight of centuries pressing down on her shoulders. Or how the shard's pulse once synced with her own heartbeat, a rhythm that still haunts her dreams. The quill dips again, scraping against the inkwell with a sound like bone on stone. She writes until her fingers cramp, until the lantern burns low, until the words blur into something that almost feels like absolution. Outside, dawn creeps over the imperial city, gilding the rooftops in gold. A new day, a new silence. Ilara leans back, rolling the stiffness from her wrists. The manuscript is nearly complete. Soon, the scholars will debate her findings. The nobles will whisper of cursed relics, and the adventurers will scour Cyrodiil for ruins she's carefully omitted from these pages. Let them. Some secrets aren't meant to be found twice. Her hand rises absently to her throat, fingertips brushing the unmarked skin where the shard's whispers once slithered. The past is gone, but not forgotten, and as long as her ink holds out, it never will be.